Hey guys, Original Boris here, back again for another movie review. Movie I am going to review today is, I guess you could say, a horror movie, somewhat of a horror movie. Low budget, not too low budget, but it is. I would consider it a low budget. The movie is called Pig Hunt from 2008. Movie is about these hunters. I think they're in California, and they're gonna go to one of the guys. His uncle owns a cabin. So they're going to head up there and they're going to hunt for a boar. And there's this legend, when they're up there, they stop off at a store. And there's this legend, the guy's telling them about a big humongous boar that's just huge size, unrealistic size. And apparently it kills people. So they have that in their heads. Kind of like a myth, I guess you could say. Kind of like Bigfoot in the woods and stuff like that. Something that people claim they see, but nobody has ever captured it or actually have pictures of it or anything. When they're walking out of the convenience store, they run into some hippies. Big hippie guy with like a bunch of female hippies, and didn't really make sense why they ran into them. They just kind of popped up in the movie. They're making out in the van. He opens it up. Women are making out. He kind of looks like he's being aggressive towards them, but they just kind of ignore him, get in the car, head back towards the mountains. Along the way, they run into one of the guy's family members and stop and say hi, and they just keep going, head up to the cabin, and they're on the mission to they're gonna go boar hunting for the weekend and have a good time, not let nobody spoil it. When they get up to the cabin, somebody has destroyed the cabin, and so they decide they're not gonna leave. They're just gonna stay, even though the cabin's completely destroyed. They're gonna stay where they're at. They're gonna camp out, and they're gonna, like I said, they're not gonna let anybody ruin their weekend. While they're camping out, some family members show up, and they're showing interest that they want to go on this boar hunt with them. So they decided they're going to let them come along hunting for boar and see what happens. The next day, you know, they do go out. They go into hunting for boar, and it's almost immediate that they start seeing boar. They don't just it doesn't take their time hiking up. They just go out, and then all of a sudden they start using like a whistle that sounds like a female boar, and all these boars start running towards them. They do end up killing one of the boar, but in the process, one of the guys ends up getting hurt. So they decide they're going to go back and try to get some help. All sorts of weird stuff starts happening throughout this movie. A lot of it doesn't even make sense. This movie is kind of all over the place. They find a big field of marijuana just out of nowhere. Big plants, that are pretty much ready to be harvested. Cause family members of the guy that was there, they want to steal the weed, and they end up arguing. One of them ends up getting killed. Like I said, it's just all over the place. So then you end up these two. One of the brothers is pissed off because they killed his brother, and these other guys are trying to get away because he took off to go get help. They end up running into some like hippie chicks that are making out and bathing in a waterfall that popped up out of nowhere. Like I said, this movie is very confusing, very all over the place, and just hard to keep up with. Like I said, it involves hippies, boar hunting, marijuana. Just a very confusing movie that doesn't really make sense. They do eventually show the big gigantic pig, but you know, it's just like the video camera's just into the pig's face, so it makes it look big, but it's probably just a regular little boar that they had for the movie, but they just try to make it look big. But it's a big mess in my opinion. They should have the whole movie was supposed to be about a boar, the big gigantic boar. They could have just kept it about the boar, and maybe the boar stalking them and them trying to get away in the woods, and that would have been a lot more interesting. But then they throw in like these hippies who are in the middle of the forest that end up like worshiping this gigantic boar. That's their god, who doesn't happen to. These hippies live in the same place as the boar, but the boar never hurts them, even though it's supposed to be really aggressive. They worship it as a god. And then you got like inbred people who are fighting over weed and miles of marijuana bushes. Just a bunch of weird, confusing, unnecessary stuff in the movie. It would have been a lot more interesting if they would have just kept it about the boar and them trying to, at first going out and hunting and then eventually trying to get out because this gigantic boar is after them. That would have been a lot more interesting. To me, it was just so hard to keep up with the movie. And in the end, it was a big question mark above my head as to what the hell I just watched. And very confusing. I didn't really care for it. It could have been a lot better. The concept sounded pretty good, but they just tried to run so many different subjects and topics into the movie that it kind of didn't make sense at the end. So not the greatest movie. I don't really recommend it. If you want to check it out, check it out. But I did not really care for it. It was just all over the place and very confusing. So did not really like it. That's 2008 Pig Hunt. That's what I watched. Could have been a lot better, but unfortunately it was pretty bad. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more. Bye.